Hi everyone. So let me see if I can attach this here maybe. Um no, I'm gonna hold it because I love the kind of like look of holding the microphone. So I did on my Instagram a short 3-minute video about the books that I'm reading, but that I haven't actually finished yet. And I did it to have some public accountability to finish them, but also to kind of give my thoughts like halfway through the book. And I would love to see like what other people think about the books, or if they could give me inspiration to finish them. I don't actually mind spoilers that much. So if you're like, actually, there's something that really is good that happens on like page 300 or whatever, and you should definitely finish just for this reason, I would love that. But I thought I would do like an extended version on YouTube just because I wasn't really able to like um, go over all the books that I'm reading, and I would love to share them with you. So ooh, here's a stack of all the books that I'm reading. They all just sit on my nightstand. I am the type of reader who likes to read multiple books at once, and depending on my mood, I'll go to one or the other. And I just thought I would talk about each of these. A lot of these books I found in free libraries. And so there's only actually two books in here that I purchased myself. So I think it's kind of interesting that a lot of what I'm reading obviously is like it's popular enough that other people are reading, but it's kind of like what my village is reading that I'm reading. Okay, I think I'm going to start with Writers and Lovers by Lily King. I guess she's the author of Euphoria, but I don't think that's related to the TV show. And the Washington Post calls this wonderful, witty, heartfelt, and I definitely agree with this. This tells the story of Casey Peabody, and she's 31 years old, and she's dealing with and processing her mother's death while trying to figure out how to be a writer, while also making ends meet as a waitress. And it kind of also details and just explores like her love life, like what um, her past lovers and current ones. And that's why it's called Writers and Lovers. And a lot of her lovers are writers. And so I just love her prose in this book. It's very clear, but at the same time, it's very descriptive. Like she doesn't need to be heavy with her language to be descriptive. And I really like that. I think sometimes like when I'm reading a book, and I'm struggling with it, sometimes like I can't picture or imagine like the world that the author is talking about. And I can definitely do that for this book so far. I'm probably like a third through it, and I just really love how imagistic it is without being too heavy in terms of her like prose. So this is the one that I'm always like excited to read. And I'm also kind of like the worst reader. I'm like because, and I feel this way about watching movies, that I kind of like skip ahead, or like I'll read ahead to see what's happening because I have anxiety about it. Um, and I also like am the type of person who's like talking the whole way through a movie. So, sorry if to all those people out there who like are just hate those types of people. But um so I've kind of skipped around in the book a little bit. And yeah, I just really like it. And it's one of those books that I always want to reach for on my nightstand. The next book that I've been reading and that I'm halfway through is a book of poems, a collection of poetry called Scorched Earth by Tiana Clark. This is a really beautiful collection of poetry. Um, she is really an award-winning poet, and in this, um, she writes poetry about her recent divorce, about love, about gender and race and sexuality. And I really just love the way that she describes things. also to talk kind of about the materiality of the book, it's a little wider than like your average book. I don't know exactly what the size of these books are, but it is a little wider. And I just love that the poems like take space on the pages and that they're kind of sprawled out in that way. I think it's really just telling for like how the poems want to take space in the world and how the author wants to bring them into the world. And I attended a reading in the city that I'm living in. Not gonna spoil that. Not gonna tell you what city I'm living in, but she came through and I got to attend a reading by her, and she was just very authentic in the way that she answered questions. And I think she's a teacher as well, so she, I think, had a lot of like really good advice for young writers. And so I really like this book. And um it hasn't taken me that long to get through it. It's just like I think you could read this in like a day. But poetry's kind of like that, right? Like you could read it very quickly, but then you have to go back to it to kind of uncover the different layers of meaning in it. So I definitely feel like this is going to be one of those books for me. Okay, the next book that I'll talk about is called Saffron Days in LA: Tales of a Buddhist Monk in America by Bhante Walpola-Piananda. And there's a foreword by the Dalai Lama. This is a book about obviously a Buddhist monk in Los Angeles. It talks about him acclimating to life in America, but a lot of what he's doing is almost like ministry work where he's doing like couples therapy or family therapy. I wouldn't say therapy in like he's not trained in psychoanalytics, but he's coming to conflict in personal relationships through the lens of Buddhism. And he is, dropping nuggets of Buddhist wisdom so that people can ultimately be better partners to each other. They can be better daughters and lovers, and they can just live their life more authentically and without suffering. Um, and the only critique that I have about this book is that I think some of the conflicts that he deals with are kind of typical gendered conflicts that you might find in like American life or just like Western gender relations. And I find that sometimes his advice is a little bit more like on the conservative side. Like I'm definitely like the type of person who is pretty liberal in like my ideas of relationships, and like I love talking about relationship anarchy and stuff like that. And so sometimes I feel like this is just a little bit more centered on maybe like traditional family values, which is fine, but that's my only critique of the book. But it does and I think sometimes like in his way of teaching things, it feels very simple, but like it could also be condescending. But I don't think a lot of the people that he is talking to take it that way. I think so. That's, I think, something too that like if you're not ready for like advice, even as a reader, like if you're not ready to receive advice, you can feel that it is condescending or feel like it's really pointed at you. And I feel like that's something that, reading this book, you just have to come to it with an open mind to like the advice that he's giving. And especially, I mean, as someone who's really interested in like Buddhist meditation and Buddhist philosophy. This is really interesting because it kind of shows how Buddhism like plays out in like everyday life in Los Angeles. So yeah, and in the description of the book, I'll read part of it. His stories reveal the complicated, joyous, painful, baffling, and inspiring aspects of the human condition and the power of true compassion. So yeah, definitely would recommend. It's from Shambhala Press. Oh my God, I'm going to sneeze. I've never been a delicate sneezer. I just got to let it out. So sorry about that. It sounds really loud on the microphone. Next book that I want to talk about is kind of a similar book in terms of um, spirituality and kind of maybe moving into self help. is this book by Young Pueblo called Clarity and Connection. It's a New York Times bestseller. I love the cover of this book. It's really interesting. Um, this is kind of like a series of mantras on relationships and happiness and love. And I think I found this in a free library outside of a psychology center in Los Angeles. I was standing in line to go to this like trendy coffee shop in Los Feliz. I'm from Los Angeles, Northeast LA. And yeah, I just found it and I was like, oh, in my mind, some fuckboy definitely had this on his nightstand and, read it and was like feeling really like psychological about it. Kind of like a Sabrina Carpenter song. Um, but in my hands, I think that it's really just like little meditations to ponder, um, your life and your romance. And I think they're not things that I like that come to my mind that I remember, but I think they're just like cute little reminders for your everyday life, to live like a more authentic life and to recommit to being a partner that um, allows your significant other to grow, that allows for your own growth, and that just makes you a better person and partner. And so they're just like good reminders for that. And sometimes when I'm feeling like I just want a book where I can read the little vignettes where I don't have to like remember the narrative or the story of the book, I turn to this book. um, and I'm more than halfway through. I have a lot of pages bookmarked, and let me see if I can like read one. Oh my god, did you hear that honking outside? Okay, here's one. Heartbreak is not always a sad ending. Sometimes it sets in motion a profound transformation. It can open the door to truly loving yourself, becoming more emotionally mature, and learning what type of partner would actually support your happiness. So, definitely recommend this book as well. Okay, the next book that I want to talk about um, is this book. It's called How to Fall in Love in a Time of Unnameable Disaster, a novel by Muriel Long. And this is an eco apocalypse book that focuses on a broken love story. And it has kind of surreal elements to it as well. I would say that the prose is a little heavier, and sometimes it can be a little confusing, like temporally, like where you are in terms of the timeline of the character's main relationship. But I will say that I definitely am attracted to books that are dealing with apocalyptic themes, just because I think like based off of the like society that we live in, it's I'm not like um I'm not trying to fan like the flames of like, people who believe the apocalypse is coming, but I think of course like in this Anthropocene, we have to grapple with the fact like what would it look like for humans to go extinct and for the world to like heal. And I think obviously like with increased like climate disasters, like we have to think about these things. And so in some ways I find that like being able to think about these things instead of avoiding them can be in some ways therapeutic. Sometimes I have like climate anxiety dreams, and I find that like reading about um, up like climate apocalypse um, can actually soothe some of those worries. So I don't know if people relate to that. But yeah, I find that especially like I love reading about love and relationships. And so this is kind of an interesting book in that way. I would say that um, this book was published by Norton, which is an independent publisher, employee owned publisher. And it was a reader's copy, actually. It was a review copy that I found in a free library. There's one free library in town where whoever lives close by must be like a author or like a academic who is like sought after for reviewing books. And I love their free library because they get all the good shit. So I always go back to that free library to find stuff, to find like interesting novels. And I found um, Saffron Days in LA in the same library. So definitely, that's my little like bookshop um, for when I want to find something new to read. I'm not that far through this. So if anyone's read this and has any thoughts about it, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. The next book that I'm going to talk about is Ace: What Asexuality Reveals About Desire, Society, and the Meaning of Sex by Angela Chen. This has been called a landmark work on culture and sexuality. And I'm not very far through this, but I would love to hear like what, if people have read Ace, like what they think about it. I think my first impression is that I really do struggle sometimes with like the usefulness of labels. And I think this is like a lot of people in the queer community also kind of struggle with finding like the right label for them. And I feel that in some ways, labels can be very clarifying. And they can help reclaim like parts of your identity that might have been lost or like suppressed. But I also think that oftentimes labels can be more confusing. You can be more confused. You might not feel that like the label totally fits you. So then, like, you might be confused in that way. Or they could feel like stifling, like maybe um, you think like for me, it's like sometimes I think that labels are really for other people, and like the way that you experience your sexuality is so multifaceted that like sometimes I don't even need a label like for my sexuality. Like I just, it comes in ebbs and flows, and like whatever it is, it is. But yeah, sometimes I think that labels are really for other people to understand you. And so in some ways, this book, I feel that tension throughout this book. And in the first couple chapters, I think something that I have issue with is that um, they will talk about asexuality and define like what asexuality is, but then at the end of the chapter they'll say, oh, but everybody experiences asexuality differently. And I find that the book is kind of feels almost sociological to me, like a little bit heavy in its prose. And so in some ways I find that tension there is a little hard to sit in. And something that I think is really powerful is to what I find powerful in the first couple pages is that when she brings in people's experiences of asexuality and in a narrative way, I find that is a lot more compelling than some of the more like sociological musings about what asexuality is. And so yeah, I think if anyone is a really big fan of this book, I would love to hear like your thoughts on that as well. And if you have any like chapters that you think are really cool, or like you might think, you could tell me that the last couple chapters are really great, and maybe the beginning or like the middle is a little more iffy. I don't know, whatever you think, I would love to hear about it. Okay, we're almost at 20 minutes, and the last book that I want to talk about is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This book obviously is a New York Times bestseller. So many people have read this. It is amazing. Her writing style is just so beautiful and descriptive. It almost feels like she is one of those classical writers that many in thousands of years people have translated her work. And yeah, it's really beautifully written. I think something that am struggling with in this book is that I'm at the point where they're leaving the island, and they're basically, it's the start of the war. And I really loved like the gay love story. I loved seeing their relationship develop. Even like some of the trials and tribulations with his wife and his and kind of some of like the concerns about like sexual consent in the book is obviously tricky. But I think what I've realized is that obviously this is like a retelling of the Trojan War. And I am not, as a person, that interested in like military history or books about war. I'm much more interested in love and romance. And so I am just kind of at the point where I'm like, I don't really want to read about the politics of war in this book. And so if anyone can give me some advice and some encouragement to finish it, because I know it's good. Like, I know it's going to be a good book. I just feel that I am just at a point where I just need a little extra push. So, those are my thoughts on Song of Achilles. But overall, I'm really loving it. And I, in early spring, my grandfather passed away, and I was just devouring this book in the airport and on the plane. Um, and so it's definitely a book I think that like sucks you in and like keeps you there. I'm just at a pausing moment now on it, but I'm really excited to finish it. So yeah, so those are the books that I'm reading that I'm halfway through or that I'm partially through, and I would love your thoughts on them or just in general. If you have any book recommendations for me based off of my list, I love psychology books. I love romance. I love poetry and sexual books on sexuality. Um, but I hope that you enjoyed this, and I definitely am wanting to do like more videos in general on this channel. So I hope that you stick around, and yeah, I hope you have a wonderful day.